Welcome to the Sports Card Lessons Podcast. I'm your host, Big Ken. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a streaming service, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You'll be notified whenever I drop any new content. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Happy Sunday. It's that Sunday right between Christmas and New Year's. Lots of football, so much stuff going on. Family parties, holiday parties, right? Shout out to Tom at Hudson Fan 15 for coming on the last episode of the podcast. If you missed any of it, definitely go back and give it a listen. It was a good episode. I have to give him a little bit of an apology. If you do watch on the YouTube version, towards the end of the episode, or at the end of the episode, I appeared to be a little distracted about something on the floor. At the end of that episode, all of a sudden I catch something out of the corner of my eye moving on the floor, and I look down and there's this massive spider. It could only happen when I'm recording, right? All the other times I sit here and I do all this stuff only when I'm in, and not only recording, but in the middle of an interview too, right? And it wasn't close enough that I could just reach over and squash him, right? So I needed to keep my eye on him because I needed to see where he was going so I could get to him later. I didn't want to leave him roaming free in the house. Things never go as you plan. So I hope everybody had a great holiday celebrating with friends and family. It's that time of year, with all the holidays, Christmas, Hanukkah, everything else. Yeah, New Year's coming with the football. Like, I pointed out last time, it was like seven days of football out of 10, right? Fantasy championship weekend going on. It's easy to get distracted away from one thing or another, at this time of year. And with the fantasy championships, I mean, all these injuries coming right before the championship weekend. It's insane how many people are out, and the hits just kept coming all week. I'm like, all of a sudden I'd listen, they'd be like, "Oh, yeah, CD Lamb's not practicing." I'm like, no, not CD. Yeah, oh yeah, he's out. uh, my fantasy breakdown this year, I had 8 fantasy teams. Right, 6 made the playoffs, 3 made the championship. At the time now of recording, which is Sunday morning before football starts, I have a guaranteed championship. I'm so far ahead in one. Guaranteed second place. I'm so far behind in another. And the third championship is really close. It's really going to come right down to, Monday night, whether who wins that one. So that's going to be an exciting one. 2 guaranteed third places and a guaranteed fourth place. Usually for me, I'm expecting 2 or 3 first place finishes every year. But this year, I'll tell you what, injuries really took its toll. I really got bit by that injury bug this year. And you look at some of these players that just dropped over this last week: Jalen Hurts, CD Lamb, David Montgomery, Chuba Hubbard, right? On one team, I had 3 of these players on one team. And when you're in 12 and 14 team leagues, there's nobody left to replace any of these players. I know Jalen Hurts. I just dropped Jalen Hurts. Well, not just, but Friday I dropped Jalen Hurts and picked up Joe Flacco. Championship game, right? I'm playing Joe Flacco. But overall, it's been a great year. I remember this time last year, I was ready for it to be over. I was thinking, wow, I really need a break from this. But this year, not so much. I'm already looking for some playoff contests to jump into. So this year has definitely been a different year. I think every year gets a little bit easier. I've set up a pattern and things that I do and the time that I spend, and I'm able to put more time in during the day this year than I had been in previous years. So I think that makes a difference too. And this year, I mean, the NFL, these games have been amazing. I mean, we had a Thursday night sleeper, right? A 9-6 game, which was bad. But for the most part, a lot of these games have been really good. And I just think these playoffs are just going to be fantastic this year. I'm super pumped about this year in the playoffs. Anyways, let's jump into this episode. I went to 2 shows this weekend. I set up at a Friday night show, and I walked a Saturday show, both local, and I'll get to those recaps in a moment. I wanted to first catch you up on my consignment journey. So I talked a few episodes ago about sending 18 cards to PC Sports Cards for consignment. So I sent in some WNBA stuff that was SGC graded. That stuff was both old WNBA stuff and new, like Origins and Select WNBA stuff. Nice enough stuff that I felt should be graded, but nothing that I wanted to send to PSA. It just didn't make the cut for PSA. So, and there was no need to wait months for this stuff to come back. So I thought SGC would be just fine on these. So when I was putting the order together and I went through this, what would I send to SGC PSA? When I was putting together these cards, I just didn't feel like either A, they would grade well, or B, I needed to spend all this time waiting because I think the price on them would be very similar if it went to SGC and I got it back in 5 days versus sending it to PSA and waiting months to get it back. I also had some graded football in there, stuff that I've been carrying back and forth to shows for a few months. Those cards have just become stale, and it was time to move them out. It was just time to liquidate them and send them on their way. I didn't need to see them in my cases anymore, and people coming to see me didn't need to see those in my cases anymore either. I talked about clearing out the old at the end of the year and bringing in new stuff for the new year, and I really believe in that. I'm a big believer of just getting rid of the old stuff and starting fresh whenever you can. I love to start fresh, and the end of the year, the beginning of the new year, what a perfect time just to start fresh. So with the consignment, I wasn't expecting any massive sales. It wasn't that I was putting something out there that was huge and I was expecting big money for. These were, more a little bit of testing the market and liquidating some stuff. I was pleasantly surprised on a couple, and I was somewhat disappointed on others. And I think that's to be expected, especially if some of these things have been sitting in my case for a while. But for the most part, it was probably what I expected. You always hope for better, but I think what the end result was basically what I expected. And it also gave me a little bit of a gauge on some of that older WNBA stuff. I wanted to kind of feel the market out to see what kind of excitement there was on eBay, like the bidding and how the bidding would go, and on the certain players too that I put up there too. So when I picked up that WNBA lot a few months ago, there was a good amount of cards that I sent to PSA. And these cards were either the lowest value or the condition wasn't that good on these cards, that they almost became more common cards. But again, it just helped me. I sent them the SGC, but again, it helped me gauge the market because then in that I have a 62 card order at PSA now with the better versions of these cards. So I have a better idea now what to expect when those cards do come back, depending on their grades. And when I start listing them for sale, at least it gives me some type of a starting price, something to start from to say, okay, this was, an SGC 8 or an SGC 9, and now we have a PSA 9 or a PSA 10. What is the price difference going to be? Because a lot of these cards haven't sold in a long time, and there was no recent comps on them. So this is almost creating some recent comps on some of these cards. There was also some newer Origins and Select WNBA. Again, nice cards with nice patches and autos that didn't make the cut for PSA, but I felt would be easier to sell these cards graded. And there's a whole new set of collectors out there for the WNBA stuff, and they're all not everybody's out there collecting Caitlin Clark, right? So there's a lot of other players people are in on, and these were cards, like, again, I said, had nice patches, had nice autographs. I just thought they would sell better graded in SGC, and that worked out pretty much just as I expected it to. And it also, doing this also helps me start a relationship with the consigner, that if I do end up with something bigger, or if I do end up with something that I want to put out to consignment that I don't want to put on eBay myself, or I don't, maybe I'm not having luck selling at local shows, or so setting up at shows, at least I have, an established account, somewhat of a rapport with the company, just to make it a little easier moving forward. Any of those cards that I put up there just weren't selling for me, as far as the football stuff in my cases. They just weren't selling. And a lot of the older WNBA and the new select stuff, select WNBA, it's hard to sell those locally at shows. Um, this is something that they're going to do much better at bigger shows. And I understand that. I understand when I'm going to a local show, I'm going to put, uh, in fact, the last couple local shows, I didn't put any of that WNBA stuff out, any of that stuff that I had. I've put some, and the women's college basketball stuff out there, but I haven't really put that up just because I know it's not going to sell at these small local shows. And if it was, the people know me, these local shows, they would reach out to me and say, hey, this is what I'm interested in. But this is stuff that's either going to sell online or it's going to sell at the bigger shows. The goal is always to get a booth or space back at the National. But until that happens, I'll have to do some traveling to some of the bigger shows and continue to sell, on eBay. So overall, good experience. I would definitely consider, doing it again. They certainly made it easy to package this stuff up and just send it out. It's interesting when you see your cards online and you have no control over them, especially the football cards. And I thought to myself, this is definitely better, because it's time for me to move on from these cards. But in my mind, some of them I just thought were worth more, right? And that's the problem. That's why they're stale cards, or they're still sitting in my case. I've had them in my cases at shows, and I probably refused some offers that I probably should have accepted. Uh, and as they were selling on eBay, I watched them all the way to the end. I just watched them count down to see, what everything was going to sell for. And I think at the end, I think it worked out better that I didn't have any control over it, because I think they sold at realistic prices. And maybe in my mind, my realistic price was probably more than what I would accept in person, what people made offers to me, and I don't have a list of the offers. I don't remember every offer, but it probably sold within. I mean, a couple of them went for more that I was super excited. Super excited that two of those cards that I had that people were making me such low offers on all the time, and I just couldn't understand it, that these cards sold for well over $100. So I was excited about that. Uh, Here's the closure, right? The closure with all these cards, and they've all found new homes somewhere else. So I'm happy about that too. And now I built up a little capital, right? With the prison football just being released and Prism WNBA getting ready to come out. Gives me some money. I can buy a case of each. I can have fun ripping and send some orders off to PSA for grading and fill up some more singles boxes. But Friday night, I set up at a local New Britain show here in Connecticut. By far, the busiest I've ever seen that show. So I've done that show monthly on a Sunday. Sundays, it's once a month on a Sunday, and they do this Friday night thing, every 3 or 4 months. And Friday night, uh, by far the busiest I've ever seen it. Sly, the promoter, said it was record attendance for the Friday. For all the shows he's done there, this Friday night show was record attendance. Well over 200 people came in for that show. I was happy to have all my singles boxes because that's what everybody was digging through. I mean, that's where I sold 95% of everything I sold just came out of those singles boxes. I did sell one big Paige Becker's card. It was one of the bigger cards. I actually had two of these cards. So I thought, hey, I'm going to bring one out. I'm going to throw a price on it, test the market, test the waters, throw it in the case. And that card sold pretty quick. So I was excited about that. I do have a number of other uh, Page cards in my cases, but there's very few that she has that are on card auto. Mostly are all sticker autos. This was an on card auto. So, and like I said, I have two of them. So the second one I'll hold on to just a little bit, and maybe one of the bigger shows I have coming up, I'll break that one out. But super excited about moving that card. I picked up most of these cards back in the spring, so the value on these cards has just been on the rise ever since. So it's definitely proving to be a great move for me, a great strategy on these cards. I talked about the last couple of years being in that dead zone that starts kind of at the end of January and it runs, I mean, at the end of December, and it runs January and February and a little bit into March. And for me, because I don't do basketball and I don't do baseball, that's why it's this kind of dead zone for me. Um, this year, I think I'm going to be able to fill that void, right, with all this women's college basketball stuff that I've been stockpiling for the last, 8 or 10 months. And I also have all these delayed orders from PSA. I have a ton of football and even some basketball cards out at PSA. And I mean, just the way this stuff is going, you guys hear me complain about this, almost every episode, but it's just insane how long it's taking them to process these orders. The way this is going, I'm probably not going to see them till February. Um, and you know what? I put the blame on PSA, and this is why I talk about them for messing up my schedule, right? Because I sent these orders in October and the beginning of November, hoping to have them back in December, January. I thought I really gave them enough time. I looked at the 40-day and the 50-day and the 60-day, whatever business day. But the problem is with them, and I reached out to them, and they said that it's not from the day the order arrives. It's the day the order goes into research and ID. That's when they create an end date that's going to be 45 business days or 50 business days. So if these orders are sitting there for a month before they ever get checked in, then you're losing a whole month. 6 out of the 9 orders I have gone to research and ID just in this last week. Just since last Thursday and Friday, all these orders went into research and ID. One order, the earliest, the October 2nd order, has gone from grading to assembly. Finally, has gone from grading to assembly, and 2 orders are still just sitting there that they just arrived, but they haven't gone to. So I'm hoping maybe this week they will get the ball rolling on that. And as I say that, like the fool that I am, and I'll always be, a nice Jim Croce reference there. I have another order prepared that I'm going to send before the end of the year to hit that end of the year special, and we'll see what happens. I mean, you can't beat them, right? You just have to. I guess I'm just gonna have to keep sending this stuff earlier and earlier for them, and not wait for the specials. Saturday, I walked another local show here in Connecticut, the Trumbull Show, and that show was the busiest I've ever seen as well. So this holiday season with these shows have been, I don't know, what it looks like where you've been, but 2 shows this weekend. One I set up, one that I walked, insanely busy. This Trumbull Show is a small room to begin with. So when I arrived, I stood in the doorway and I thought there's no way I could even get in. I could even get to a table with all these people standing in there. And I thought to myself, do I just turn and leave? Like there's no way I'm going to get anything done with all those people. But then I saw my guy Bill at Bill and Billy Sports Cards. I knew he had a table. He was set up. So I worked my way through the crowd to behind the table, and I sat with him for a while until the crowd cleared out. I was happy to have that time just to sit there and catch up with him and not have to fight the crowd in the room. So when the crowd died down, I walked the room. I actually have no pickups to share. I haven't really bought anything. I know these PSA orders are going to start popping, and as of now, I have plenty of sellable inventory to carry me through to next month anyways, especially with the women's basketball stuff. I had the Causeway show coming up in Boston at the TD Garden Complex there. That's on January 11th. I'm setting up at that show with Rich Zwittlebug Cards. And at the end of January, I'm going to Atlanta to Culture Collision. So, I mean, both of these shows may be really good buying opportunities, maybe good buying shows as well. We'll see what happens. That's all I got for you today. I'm excited to spend the rest of the day watching football and relax. I'll be back Wednesday with a brand new episode. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And if you like what you hear, please definitely subscribe. And most importantly, tell a friend and spread the word. Till next time, take care of yourselves and everyone around you.